The afternoon sun filtered through the weathered slats of the old barn, casting golden ribbons of light across the hay-strewn floor. Dust motes danced in the warm beams, creating an almost magical atmosphere in the quiet space. This was where James McKinley came when the weight of his wealth and responsibilities became too much to bear. James was not your typical millionaire. At 52, he had built his fortune through hard work and determination, transforming a small family ranch into one of the largest cattle operations in Montana. His weathered hands and sun-lined face told the story of a man who had never forgotten his roots, despite the millions in his bank account. The brown cowboy hat that rarely left his head was the same one his father had worn decades before. On this particular afternoon, James had retreated to the barn, seeking solace. The business meetings, the endless phone calls from investors, the constant pressure of managing an empire, it all seemed meaningless when he thought about what was truly missing from his life. Success had come at a price. At 52, he found himself wealthy beyond measure, yet profoundly alone. The sound of soft footsteps on the barn floor interrupted his thoughts. He turned to see Sarah Chin, the young woman who had been working as his ranch's veterinarian assistant for the past 6 months. At 28, Sarah possessed a quiet strength that had caught James's attention from the very beginning, though he had been careful to maintain professional boundaries. Sarah moved with obvious discomfort, one hand pressed against her side. Her usually neat brown hair had escaped from its braid, and her cream-colored dress bore suspicious stains that made James's heart skip with concern. She hadn't noticed him in the shadows as she made her way toward a pile of old horse blankets in the corner of the barn. "Sarah," James called softly, not wanting to startle her. She jumped, spinning around with wide eyes. "Mr. McKinley, I didn't know you were here. I was just, ... Her voice trailed off as she swayed slightly on her feet. James stepped forward, his experienced eye immediately noticing the way she favored her left side. "You're hurt," he said, his voice filled with gentle concern. "What happened?" "It's nothing," Sarah insisted, though her pale complexion suggested otherwise. "Just a small accident with one of the horses. Thunder got spooked and, well, it doesn't matter, I'm fine." But James could see she was far from fine. Dark stains on her dress told a different story, and the way she struggled to remain upright sent alarm bells ringing in his mind. He had seen enough ranch accidents over the years to recognize when someone was in serious trouble. "Sarah, you need medical attention," James said, moving closer. "Let me help you." "No." The word came out sharper than she intended. Sarah's cheeks flushed with embarrassment, and she took a small step backward. "I mean, thank you, but I can manage on my own, I always have." There was something in her voice, a vulnerability mixed with fierce independence, that made James pause. He had learned to read people well in his years of business, and he sensed there was more to Sarah's reluctance than simple stubbornness. "Sarah," he said gently, "I've been around this ranch long enough to know a serious injury when I see one. You're bleeding, and you need help whether you want to admit it or not." She looked down at her dress, as if seeing the stains for the first time. The movement caused her to wince, and she pressed her hand more firmly against her side. "Please, ... Her voice became barely a whisper. "Please don't lift my skirt. I know you're trying to help, but I can't." The words hung in the air between them, heavy with unspoken pain. James felt his heart clench at the fear in her voice. In that moment, he understood that Sarah's reluctance wasn't about modesty or independence. Something deeper was at work here, something that made her terrified of being vulnerable, even when she desperately needed help. "Sarah," James said, his voice as gentle as a summer breeze, "can you tell me why you're so afraid?" For a long moment, she didn't answer. Then, as if a dam had burst, the words came tumbling out. "Because of the scars," she whispered, tears beginning to flow down her cheeks. "Because I'm not whole anymore. Because anyone who sees them will know what happened to me, and they'll look at me differently forever." James felt something inside his chest break apart and rearrange itself. The successful rancher, the millionaire businessman, the man who commanded respect in boardrooms across the country, none of that mattered in this moment. What mattered was the young woman in front of him, wounded in ways that went far deeper than any physical injury. "What happened to you, Sarah?" he asked softly. She closed her eyes, as if gathering strength. "A car accident, 3 years ago. My fiancé was driving. We were arguing about something so stupid, I can't even remember what it was." He took his eyes off the road for just a second, and, ... double quotes, she paused, taking a shaky breath. "He died. Instantly, I spent 6 months in the hospital. The doctors did their best, but my legs. The scarring is extensive. I've been hiding it ever since." James felt his world shift. Here was this brave, intelligent woman who had been carrying this burden alone, believing herself somehow less worthy because of scars she couldn't control. The tragedy of it, the unnecessary shame she had been bearing, made his successful but lonely existence seem trivial by comparison. "Sarah," he said, moving slowly toward her, "may I tell you something?" She nodded, not trusting her voice. "I have spent my entire life building walls," James began, his own voice thick with emotion. I've built financial walls, emotional walls, walls that keep people at a distance because I was afraid of being hurt or disappointed. I've been so successful at building walls that I've managed to wall myself into a prison of my own making." He paused, removing his hat and setting it gently on a nearby hay bale. "But right now, in this moment, seeing your courage in the face of such pain, Sarah, your scars don't make you less whole. They make you more human, more real, more beautiful than anyone I've ever known." Sarah's eyes widened in surprise. "You don't understand. They're terrible. They cover most of my legs. And they're part of your story," James interrupted gently. "And your story is one of survival, of strength, of continuing to care for animals and work hard despite carrying this pain alone. That's not something to be ashamed of. That's something to be proud of." He knelt down beside her, careful not to touch her without permission. "Sarah, you need medical attention for your current injury, and I want to help you, not because I pity you, but because, He paused, searching for the right words. "Because somewhere along the way, I've come to care about you more than I probably should." She looked at him with wonder, as if seeing him clearly for the first time. You care about me?" "More than care," James admitted, his weathered face soft with tenderness. "I think I've been falling in love with you since the day you first walked onto this ranch. Your kindness with the animals, your quiet strength, the way you treat everyone with respect, regardless of their station in life. You've brought something to this place, to my life, that I didn't even know was missing." Sarah stared at him, tears still flowing, but now they seemed cleaner somehow, as if they were washing away years of hidden shame. "But I'm damaged goods, James. I'm not the kind of woman a man like you should, a man like me." James laughed softly. "Sarah, I'm a lonely middle-aged rancher who's been so focused on building financial success that I forgot to build a life. If anyone is damaged goods here, it's me." He reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away if she wanted to. When she didn't, he gently took her hand. "We all carry scars, Sarah. Some are visible, some aren't, but they don't define our worth. What defines our worth is how we choose to love and be loved despite those scars." For the first time in 3 years, Sarah felt something inside herself begin to heal. Not the physical scars, those would always be part of her, but the emotional wounds that had kept her isolated and afraid. "Will you let me help you now?" James asked gently. "Not as your employer, but as someone who cares about you." Sarah nodded, finally trusting herself to speak. "Yes," she whispered. "Yes, I'll let you help me." As James carefully helped her to the truck that would take them to the hospital, Sarah realized that sometimes the most unexpected moments can change everything. Sometimes it takes another person's gentle acceptance to help us see ourselves clearly. Again, and James, supporting this brave woman as they walked slowly through the golden afternoon light, understood that all the money in the world couldn't buy what he had found in this dusty barn, a chance to love someone, not despite their scars, but because of the strength it took to carry them. In the weeks that followed, as Sarah recovered from her injuries and slowly began to trust in James's love, they both discovered that healing comes not from hiding our wounds, but from finding someone brave enough to see them and love us anyway. The old barn remained their special place, where two wounded souls had found each other and discovered that sometimes being broken is just another way of letting the light in.